prompt. All right, and welcome everyone to our second leadership panel. This will be for the spring of 2021. I was not about to say 2020 because 2020 can go suck it.
2020 is over.
It's
Canceled.
over. Come on,
It's
we're on a
canceled.
new page. And we have a fabulous cast of leaders here.
Now on with a new worse year.
Don't jinx us like that.
Right. Shame on you, Wiley. Tisk. But I am Rochelle. I am the online leader for the Drawaholics and a illustration major senior. And I will let everyone go ahead and introduce themselves and what they're doing and all the fun things. Let's go ahead and start with you, Tish.
Sweet. Hi, I'm Tish. I am in game development concept art. Currently in my last year, so currently working on my thesis forever. So yeah, that's me. I don't know. Do you want me to say anything else or? So, all right, who's next? Bernice, how about you? As she has you take a sip of water.
Yeah,
Perfect timing.
Hello, I'm Brittany Song. I'm an alumni for concept art at Academy of Art, and I was working at UI UX, but my company has financial issues, so I'm looking for work again. But that's no big deal.
Oh, that's always fun.
They might hire me back, so who knows?
Crossing fingers. All right, you're next, Wiley.
All right, fantastic. Like Tish, I'm also in concept art for games, and I'm also in my last year, and I am also working on the side with some contracting gigs, so I'm currently working as a concept artist.
And you, Jordan, you get the snazziest introduction, sir.
Oh, the snazzy. Okay. What's up, everyone? I'm Jordan. I am an alumni of the Academy of Art. I was a major in concept art for games, and currently I'm working at DreamWorks and as a character designer in TV animation department.
Confetti.
Yeah, there's confetti all around.
And
Jazz hands.
Right, and then one of our leaders, Ryan, she is our little guest leader. She is also a student representative for the Academy, so I will let her introduce herself, and she does have some stuff that she wants to share with you guys.
So of course I have to follow Jordan. Thanks. But I am a student at the Academy of Art. I am your student rep representative across the board for all graduate. I'm just going to drop where you guys can actually email us because it's kind of hidden on our website. But so I just put that in the chat for anybody who has any issues at the Academy. Always feel free to reach out. I'm also just a student like you, so I'll probably be in some of your classes doing concept art for games.
All right, and then let me go ahead and get started. I pulled together another lovely slideshow, and let me make sure I get the right window. There we go. All right, and we will go ahead and get started. So the first question that came, or I should say this came up a few times, and we're going to go ahead and start with that, is how can I keep up the 2,500 with school and or work life, family life? So what are your guys' tips on time management and workload balancing? I'll let whoever start.
Oh, let's see. First piece of advice, anyone who wants to take your time out of the day, like family, friends, sometimes you gotta look at them and say, hey, I need to do this. Give me some space. Because when you're trying to balance so many things at one time, you're still a human being, so you still gotta split up your time towards what matters to you. Doing the 2,500 challenge is a self-improvement challenge that allows you to grow as an artist towards that dream job that you want. So you have to take a piece of that time that you have out of every day to put a little bit towards that self-improvement. And the people who care about you most will understand that you need that time for your self-improvement.
So for me, I'm a very busy person. I'm a student rep, I'm a leader of Drawaholics, and then I'm a full-time student, and I take commissions on top of that. And so one of the biggest challenges for me was keeping up with the 2500. And so what I started doing was thinking like, hey, I got to warm up before I even do any of my assignments. So I started doing the head drawings and the hand drawings right before. And so it helped me make better drawings, but also helped me get on track with that. So using the 2500 as a warm up really just put a schedule for me that was really effective.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I had to learn for myself was just learning what to sacrifice, sort of like what Wiley said. There are times where people in your life, family, friends, spouse, whatever, will want to, spend time with you. And that's important. But at the same time, you have to think about your future. You have to think about, where will I be in 5 years if I do this and I succeed? Will it, by me not taking this as intensely as I should, will it slow down my growth process? And those are sort of the things that kept me going. I started thinking, if I do this, I'm going to be so much further, faster, and I can get to my dreams in a lot quicker pace.
I think practically speaking, like, isn't it only like if you draw every day, isn't it only like 7 drawings every day or something?
Yeah.
So I mean, you could look at it that way too. Like if you just want to take a little bit every day and just keep doing a little bit every day, you only need to do like 7 a day. So even that, like that's not I feel like it's doable, it's not like too overwhelming. So you don't have to like do it in huge like chunks. You can just knock it out a little bit every day. So
And
That's also like an hour out of your day, because if each head or hand or whatever else you're working on through the 2500 is a maximum of 10 minutes, that's just a little bit over an hour.
Yeah. Plus, I know this, like the further you get, the faster you get it. So it pays off for itself after. So you may struggle in the beginning, but just time yourself in the beginning and then just keep going, and you'll soon find like your own balance for it as well.
Yeah, it seems pretty daunting, but like I remember having one day where I pumped out 86 heads in the same day. That was a rough day, but I did
I
it.
think I did something similar. I was just
One-
like speed.
One thing that you can do that can really help out with your schedule is a lot of people have things that they do routinely, whether it's morning coffee or if they do exercise. They usually have something that they do day by day at around the same time. You can pair up your drawings for the 2500 with that routine item so that every time you do that routine thing, it's like a little alarm going off in your head saying, hey, I should also stop and draw a bit.
If you really want to get manic with it as well, something that helped me was just managing my time with other things. So like once you start doing art, you'll start understanding, oh, it takes me, X amount of time to do an environment. It takes me X amount of time to do a concept character. And planning out your day hour by hour, as crazy and manic as that sounds, is really helpful to start fitting pieces together and fitting in breaks as well.
Okay, awesome. And I do also want to add a little bit, if I recall right, in many of Mike's lectures, that the 2500 is actually based on an hour a day practice. And even the most professional artists, at least commit at least an hour a day to just straight practicing and warming up and revisiting the basics, because it keeps them, on the top of their game while being loose and ready for their projects. But speaking of projects, that is the next question: is maintaining consistency with a full workload as a working artist, how do you balance your projects?
So for me, I mean, when I clock in, that is just work time. I have to eat, have to pay rent. There's just certain things that are just not negotiable, and you have to survive. If you want to make it as an artist, it's just part of the deal. I think the trick is figuring out how much stamina you have either before you clock in or after you clock out of work, and still keeping that passion. I think that's something that a lot of people will struggle with, whether they're a working professional or not, is having that passion for a particular project or their practice. Because what I noticed for me is when I finally got a job, some of those I've been thinking for so long, oh, I can't wait till I get this position. And now that I finally got it, I'm like, well, now what's next? So keeping that passion, keeping that drive is going to be super important. If it, sometimes while food is cooking, I'll take an hour or two to work on what it is that I want, or just keep imagining where I see myself a few years from now, because this is, it's just the beginning, and you have a whole career ahead of you. And I feel like you have to keep that spark, that flame going that you had while you're in school.
Yeah. And as far as managing yourself and trying to manage all these products at the same time, if you work at it in a tier list of priorities, say the number one priorities are minimum deliverables. So you take each of the projects that you're working on, you say, what is the absolute minimum that I need in order to make this complete? It's can be delivered, it can be shipped off, it's done. Then those are your top priority items. You knock out everything on that list, and then you go down to the next list, which is things like, okay, what can I add to this to improve the quality of what I absolutely need done? So that when I deliver it off, I'm giving value in that direction. And then you drop down from that list to like your C tier, which is, all right, what can I do extra if I have time? And that's usually whenever you're also questioning, like, do I have the stamina to keep going? Do I need to take a mental break? But once you have those minimum deliverables done, it takes a lot of stress off. You've got all your projects that you need completed, and then the rest is just adding quality to your work.
Something that helped me personally as well is just being gentle with myself. Not everything I make is going to be my highest quality of work, but sometimes you do have to push through it and not get discouraged if you're not making masterpieces every time. That's part of the learning process.
And actually, thank you, Ryan. That is the next question, is maintaining physical and mental health as an artist. What are some of the things you guys do to stay on top of your game? And what do you recommend to new members and new students as they start forming these habits fresh?
I've got quite a bit to say about this particular topic.
Same
Because I
here.
remember coming in like my first semester, I was trying to learn from the cubes class, like to do digital painting, because I hadn't done digital painting before. And I was spending 72 hours every week on that class, just that one. And I had 5 classes that semester. So take it from me, don't do that. It really starts to affect your health if you don't give yourself time to be a healthy person and be an artist. Your health should take priority, because if you're not healthy, you can't work as an artist. It will destroy everything that you're trying to do. So, first priority, make sure that you're eating super healthy. If your body has the nutrients that you need in order to function as a human being, your body is happy. You've got a lot more endurance. Second up, always get a good night's sleep. People always like to sacrifice sleep, like, no, I got to get the project done. But whenever you have a full night's sleep, not only are you fully functional, but your brain is working at max capacity. You're putting out your best work the quickest that you can, instead of this 4 a.m. golem of a person who's trudging out and putting things out like 25% as fast as you, if you would have just taken that time to rest. And third thing that you want to put in there, exercise. A lot of people shove off exercise as well because they think, oh, I only need to exercise if I don't want to be like super fat. No, a lot of your body and a lot of your brain functions off of how healthy your body is, such as like your circulatory system, how well you're transferring oxygen. You need to get exercise so that your body knows how to function, knows how to repair itself, and can keep up with itself. Stay healthy, all around healthy. Be a better artist.
That,
I have another thing to add. Ryan, you go first.
well, thanks. So I similarly was doing 90-hour weeks, trying to just grind and grind and grind. And then one day, my hand flared up and it just ballooned up, and I got tendonitis in my hands, and I had to take 2 weeks off. And then anytime that I want to sit there for, over 3 hours drawing, flares up again. And it was directly from not sleeping enough, drawing through the night, and just being generally crazy. And so it's like I'm still struggling with that as an artist now. So now what I kind of do instead is I'll be drawing, and every like 30 minutes or so, I'll just look away from the screen, which is good for your eyes. You don't have to do it for very long, but you can do that. And then do like a couple of hand stretches like this. It helps a lot. The other thing I do is during my lunch break, if I've got, 10 to 30 minutes, I'll go on a walk. I'll either go on a walk, I'll go for a run. It's a lot easier with, staying at home. If you're not an essential worker and you get that time, just do some yoga, just anything to get your body moving and giving it a break so you don't strain yourself. It'll save you tendinitis. It'll, save you from chronic fatigue. And it will help your eyes, trust me.
Yeah, what I was gonna touch on was eyes, because I get frequent migraines just with how my body's built. So I have like blue light refractive glasses, so I can stay at least working a bit longer without having any like issues like dry and whatnot. And especially because I moved to a more cold area, I get dry eye pretty frequently. So it makes it hard for me to draw. And then again, like Ryan said, going out for a walk definitely helps because you'll rest your eyes, you'll stretch yourself, and you also don't want to be sitting all the time. Like if you sit for so long, you start feeling your legs, like you start losing feeling in your legs, and that really sucks because you get distracted by that and you don't feel good. And also, if you can, do try to get yourself a setup too for your artwork, because I've used to work on a really small lower tablet setting, so my neck was permanently bent forward, and I started getting back pains. So if your setup isn't at least at like some form of table and a slightly cushioned chair, I would look into that, because I used to like sit on the floor to draw. I used to do other things, and it's not good for me.
Yep. You got to realize that being an artist is extremely, extremely hard on the body. And if you're not treating your health as a priority, then you can end up in the hospital. It's really important.
Or like you won't even go to draw again afterwards. You don't want that.
I think one of the key things for me is, all the physical stuff is definitely important, the exercise and the eating right and all that, but taking mental breaks, like literally just taking your mind off of art and your assignments, I don't think people realize how beneficial that is. Because when your brain is constantly going 100% on just art and you don't have time for anything else, then it's going to end up stagnating your growth process. And I find that whenever I ran into an issue like that, I was less creative. I couldn't think of design solutions as quickly. I was struggling a lot. And so I would take 1 day a week, 24 hours just to not do any art, not draw, not, hyper analyze any sort of creative thing. If I was watching a show that I liked, I would just watch it purely for entertainment, not because I was trying to analyze how does this design function. I think that's going to be huge. Just taking time off, let your brain rest a little bit.
And with that, actually, Jordan, how often do you take breaks when you are working? Like, what's your recommended break regimen?
Like that can be tricky depending on what the deadline is, realistically speaking. I'm one of those people who tends to focus on long periods of time. So I'll just sit there and work for a couple hours. But after when I stop feeling excited, when I stop feeling motivated, and whenever I feel like just mentally fatigued, I just have to stop. Because when I started realizing, I was like, you know what? The longer I sit here is not going to make this thing better. At this point, I'm kind of just moving my hand around, moving my wrist around, and it's not helping the piece. I'm getting frustrated. And at that point, I just say, I need to go to take a walk. And sometimes I'll be like, you know what, I need to run some errands anyway. I'll come back in 2 hours and we'll see where I'm at. And if I'm still feeling kind of stuck, then I might extend that break.
A lot of it, you just have to learn about yourself. Like you need to learn your own limits. And like we were talking earlier about like the speed that you get things done, and like if you need to take multiple breaks, like if you can't, I have a hard time focusing for long periods of time sometimes. So I will take like little short breaks throughout the day. Sometimes just like a 10 to 20-minute walk away is enough to just, reset. But you kind of need to figure that out, like what works best for you. Because what works best for someone, that might not work for you. So you have to kind of like experiment with it, and understand too that motivation to get things done does not happen all the time. Like 90% of the time, maybe this is just me, but a lot of the times I am not motivated to get stuff done. But that doesn't mean that I don't draw. Like, you still have to draw, even if you don't sometimes want to do it. And by doing it and pushing past that, you'll get better, where you don't need to be motivated to draw. You can just start doing it.
I also think it's important to just acknowledge that when you're doing this, you'll start to recognize when you need to develop your discipline and to stay motivated, even if you don't feel that way, versus a burnout. Because if you're feeling burnout, that's definitely a time you should take a break.
Yeah.
Because if you have no input, you're not going to have any output. So if your input is just your drawing that you're doing all the time, instead of, having a little bit of fun, if, not saying that art isn't fun, but you need to give yourself that mental break as well.
And actually, that brings up another good question. That is, how do you feel when you draw?
Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. Just pull it up. I don't know. Some assignments I get, I'm like, okay, this is cool. And other assignments, I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I gotta do it anyway.
I also think there's this misconception that if you are an artist, that you have to love doing art all the time. And I think that's not true. There's many times where I'm frustrated, I'm pushing through something, I'm working on something I'm not really into, or maybe I just know it's crap. Like, I just know that whatever I'm making is not good, but I gotta get it done anyway. And that's okay. It doesn't make you any less of an artist. It doesn't mean that your love for art's not gonna come back, or you're not gonna be interested in it again. Just try your hardest to not get discouraged in those moments. Keep in mind that it's a time limit.
I'm going to go off of that and add something that's not nearly as valuable. I'm just going to put my opinion in there. For me, working on art, because I'm in the concept art field, it feels a lot like putting together a puzzle. Like, you're trying to figure something out. Because whenever you're making concept art, you're trying to communicate an idea to someone else, communicate everything from the design intentions to the emotion you want them to feel about it. And you got to piece together, all right, what ingredients do I need to mix into this mad potion that I'm creating for them to feel exactly what I'm feeling right now? And it's just this super fun puzzle.
And even if you don't,
valuable.
I heard neither of you because you both were like
I
perfectly
quit
in sync.
halfway through, but
Go on.
wait, who's going now?
You.
Oh, I'm going now. Okay. But now I have to remember what I was going to say.
Oh, the beauty of Zoom.
Let's just move on. I don't know if I quite remember. But,
yeah, I'm
okay.
definitely a lot like Wiley in that regard. Even if the thing that I'm working on may not be completely in my interest, I'm solving a visual problem. It's to me, it's exciting and almost like a little mini adventure trying to get everything to work just the way you want it. And so I'm definitely one of those crazy weirdos that it doesn't matter what I'm drawing. If my pencil is moving, I'm in my happy place.
Well,
I remember what I was going to say.
Talking at
I'm
the
so
same
sorry.
time.
I remember. I
it.
was going to say something along the lines of Rochelle. Like, even if I don't necessarily like what I'm working on or the content that I'm drawing, sometimes like if it's an assignment, like to still focus on like, what is this assignment? What am I supposed to be learning from this? Like, and even though I don't necessarily like what I'm doing, like trying to put into practice that particular like technique that you're trying to learn. Okay, I'm done.
But then
me,
there are always those special fun moments where you look at something that you've made and it's actually amazing, and you just start getting all giggly and like, oh, that's great. I did that.
I was for some reason I was just reminded of Pillsbury Doughboy when you start giggling like that. But for me, whenever I am struggling or there's a potential that I may not like it, I do everything in my power to convince myself how fun it's going to be and how awesome it's going to be. Because sort of like what was said earlier, when you're starting with a blank canvas or Photoshop file, whatever it is, there's so much potential there. You could really create something that will just blow people away. The times that I've struggled is when people are going like, change this, change this, change this, and they ask for like a trillion different things, and then it starts to suck the fun out of it. But in the meantime, just let's put it like this. When you're hired for a job, people hire you specifically because they see that you have a unique lens. You see the world through in a very interesting way, and they want you to put that in the piece. So take advantage of that. If it's a way you draw, if it's something about your personality or whatever it is, put that into the work, and that's really going to come through and shine.
I also think it's worth saying that while you do want to find a reason to like whatever you're not interested in, whether that be, what has been said before, which is like make a puzzle out of it, or, make it the best that you can out of it. The other thing is you might also just not like it because you don't know how to do it yet, and it's hard and it's new. And so push through that. It'll get better. And it's probably not going to get better in the first 5 times that you attempt that one thing. And it's a grind, but it will pay off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I recently did get hired to work on UI UX work, and that is not what I studied for at Academy of Art, but they wanted me to do UI work for them. And there were some times where it's like, I got a project, I was like, oh, this is great, it's really fun. Other times my boss had so many different things he wanted to do that I'm just like, can I really do all that, or could have it changed? I'm just like, wait, no, I can't do that. It's gonna make it look really cluttered. And you have to like convince your boss to not go through that change too. But like it ended up becoming a really good learning experience, because even though I didn't know how to do anything at the start, I learned on the job from my coworkers and the other artists on the team. And then there were times where like even I would make something and it just wouldn't go through at the end. They'd be like, oh yeah, we liked it. And then they go, like, oh, we changed it. It's like, oh, okay, never mind then. But like you still learn something from that experience. And even if it wasn't your favorite, you still got something out of it.
And you have to be open to the fact that if something needs to be changed, or if something you're getting a critique, like it's not a personal, like it's not personal. Like all the art that you do, at least in concept art, speaking for concept art, is like Wiley said, you're trying to solve a problem. And if the problem is not solved, and the art director will tell you like, no, fix this or whatever, it has nothing to do with you as a person and everything to do with solving the problem.
Yeah, it's also like a collaboration. You have to make sure everyone else on the team likes it, because if it's only you, that means you didn't solve something.
All right. So the
whole-
next. Oh, go for it. What?
Oh, sorry, I was going to say just the whole working around a team. It's like making a team soup. You're putting your personal flavor in, but the soup's got to be like everyone's flavors got to mix together well. It's got to be a good soup.
Too much salt.
Where's the
Salt for art.
potato?
Gets one feedback. This is too bitter.
If only it were that easy.
Just be like, yes, I see you were really going at it with the salt this time around.
Oh, I love it. All right. So next question. And this is where all the fun stories get to come in. What are your experiences working on the 2500? What were some of your biggest challenges and your favorite parts?
Oh, my favorite part was when Michael was like, the point of the 2500 in general is to get better and to better yourself. So you're gonna make crappy drawings. Your drawings are going to be bad, and that's okay. The point is that you keep doing it, and by continuing to do the drawings over and over, you are practicing and retraining your brain on how to actually do it properly. So yes, and you have to accept, like, you're gonna draw some bad stuff, and you're gonna look back and go, wow, that's not my favorite. Let's flip this page. But it's part of your learning process, and if you go into it accepting that, I think you'll have a more healthy outlook in, and not become discouraged or like guilt yourself into, oh, I'm not good enough, or like these aren't as good as this person's. And like, it's, remember that you're on your own personal track with the 2500.
Yeah.
It's
Also,
also
like-
okay if there are people.
Okay. How about
We all wanna talk.
Me, Bernice, and Wiley. How about that?
All
That
right.
was awesome.
We need like little signs, like, I
Mine-
would like to speak, please.
Um,
I just raised my hand. Just,
well, if you ever feel bad about getting started with 2500, keep in mind that my drawings are used as reactions and memes in my group chats. So you can't get much lower than that. And it does get better. But anyway, that's all I wanted to add. You go ahead, Bernice.
I want to say that it's also okay that if you saw yourself improving, but at some point you in the middle, you're just like, why did I suck again? It goes back down. That's fine. That means you have learned something new and you're also trying something new. Because I had that. I was like drawing heads and I'm like, yeah, I got this. And after I was just like, after like 400, I was like, I don't like these anymore. And then like 100 later, I was like, okay, no, I got this. And weird enough, my favorite part of the 500 is drawing hands. I know everyone hates drawing hands, but I love hands. They're so fun to me. And I think I remember as a kid, I was just like, I want to be the artist that doesn't hate hands, and I've accomplished that. And I'm so proud of myself.
So that actually brought up an important point from me for the 2500, is that one thing that will really help you grow a ton is if you're constantly experimenting. One of the quickest way to learn and like pick up new tricks is to try new tricks, even if you haven't practiced them too much. I have a little bit of a bad habit. Like, I'll even experiment when I probably shouldn't. Like, I'm turning this in tomorrow, but let's try this. Most fun experience that I had with 2500 was a bit more of a looking back kind of experience, because when I completed my 2500, Michael had me posted up on the little wall in the academy as one of the most improved people from the 2500. And looking at the first one and the last one was a fantastic leap. And then 2 months later, I came back down the hall, looked at the heads that I had for my finished one. It's like, ugh, that's where I finished? I've already gotten better.
Let's see. For me, I think my experience, it was really quick. So I did my 2500 alongside a class that the homework assignments were literally to draw heads and hands and arms and stuff. So it went by really quickly. But I think the part that I remember the most, specifically when it comes to drawing heads, I had two reoccurring problems. Is one, I would draw people with very similar features to myself, regardless of what race or gender they were. Like, they always have my nose for some reason, no matter where they came from. Or I would draw the ear in the wrong place and the heads would look super skinny. And I talked to Michael about this, and I noticed he has this little tick about him. Whenever someone doesn't like perform to the degree that he's hoping for, he'll always go like,
Oh God.
deep sigh. And he kept doing that with me. I was like, dang it, like I knew it before it was coming. And there was a point where I showed him my heads and he didn't do that anymore. And I was like, there's no deep sigh. Oh my goodness, like what the heck? And that was just super exciting. I was like, I'm improving, I'm getting better. And I had a similar experience with Wiley. I didn't have my artwork on the Hall of Improvement, right? But looking back at some of those first drawings that like I post on Instagram, I cringe. I'm like, this is not good. This is not quality, but it's a process.
And you're just constantly growing as an artist. Like I look at the things that I posted up 2 months ago, I was like, ugh.
So
Every time.
That's just an artist thing.
something
A
else
growing
that was
artist
helpful-
thing.
Something else that was really helpful was this book that I just put in the chat, which was Andrew Loomis. He's great. So if you need some extra reading or something to kind of, improve your skills, that's a good place to look.
I was also gonna say, like, never be complacent. You can be happy, but never be complacent.
All right, I guess let's move on to the next one. So this one's kind of a silly question, and I'm sure we've all run into days like this. Have you ever drawn for so long you feel like when you're not drawing, whether you're cooking or going to sleep, that you're still drawing?
Kind of like, I kind of always have like a plan going on my head for something, like just a project. I'm just like, I could try this next time or this. And then like my like friend will be talking to me and I'd just be like, wait, what were you saying?
I don't get those parts where I feel like I just never stop drawing because my focus is on the design stuff. So drawing kind of like sits in the background for me, but I'm always like in my head designing things. I always like gotta stop and say, hey, no, stop real quick. You're cooking something. You should be paying attention.
If I know that I'm like bad at drawing something or I need to improve at it. So for example, like if I'm struggling with the knees and I find myself just like hyper staring at people's knees on the sidewalk, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that. That's not normal. And if it's not that, then it's probably like switching from like a digital medium like Procreate to just going back to like hand drawing. I'll start double tapping my like
Oh my God.
my paper.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, I've done that. For me, it's zooming in and out. I go like this all the time. Like, why isn't it working?
You just move your head forward, Jordan.
Right.
I get that reflexive Control Z.
Yeah.
Yeah, just you just type it. You just do that. Like, oh, and then like, wait a second. I have my erasers right there.
I always look
Just
around
write-
like, I really hope no one saw that.
You just write on your eraser Control Z and put little key boxes on it. Oh, I love it. Okay, so the big question. This is getting down to the nitty gritty here. In your time, both the Drawaholics in the school, what were some of the biggest mistakes that you have learned and the most powerful lessons that came from them?
I'll start. Do not be afraid. I know that is so much easier said than done, but I've gone through, and I'm still going through, I mean, most of my, graduate career here, and like so focused on I have to have this good design or I have to have this good drawing, and like afraid to like draw something wrong or whatever. And it you just gotta put your ideas out there and just do it. And like Wiley was saying, like experiment. Like if it doesn't turn out, it didn't turn out, but you wouldn't have known it if you didn't try it. And like take a photo that you see online and try to paint it, or like don't limit yourself and don't be afraid to just do stuff or put stuff on the page, because you'll be surprised, I think, in yourself by just going for it. So.
I
One
think
thing that I learned because of all of my bad habits of biting off more than I can chew is how to be end goal oriented. And what I mean by that is you have something in your head about what kind of artist you want to be by the end of this short journey before you go on to be an artist in the outside world. Keep that in mind. So even if you're going through classes that aren't directly associated to what you're doing right now, you can break it down and say, all right, what about this class is benefiting what I want to do? You can figure out, okay, which of my classes am I going to prioritize over the others? Basically, keeping in mind how you want to grow and not just getting kind of trapped in a loop of trying to do everything all at once, trying to get all A's in all classes, like splitting yourself up so that you're growing into the artist that you want to be.
I think for me, the biggest struggle I had was learning how to put away frustration. There's a lot of times where I'll be working on something and in my head, or I thought that what I was producing was gold. And then I get feedback on it and I would get frustrated, not necessarily at the professor or the people who are critiquing me, but just at myself for not seeing those things. Like, oh, how could I miss that? And learning how to take those things into learning opportunities can be a challenge for some people. So if I were to, speak to myself 2-3 years ago, that would probably be the biggest thing I would say is like, don't get frustrated, take it as a learning experience, continue to have fun, and then just like Tish said, don't be afraid and push yourself.
I'd say that probably taking care of my mental health and then also trying to not be a perfectionist. And the reason for that is those things kind of go hand in hand. Sometimes you don't realize that you're being too self-critical. And if you're being too self-critical and always trying to put out the best piece of work you possibly can, you're actually limiting yourself. Failing is part of the learning process. And it's really okay if you fail. It's actually better if you do. And that's kind of like part of the point of the 2500 is to get all those bad drawings out there, as like Michael likes to say. But so yeah, probably that. And then also definitely coming up with a game plan. Like when you're trying to be a better artist, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time, and you really, really, really have to have that plan. And that's tough to learn.
I think I'd say that the biggest mistake and that I learned from would be to really push my designs, because as a concept artist, like you need to really experiment, and that's like because you work in the early phase of creating a finished piece too. Like for a game, you have to like really go beyond and then rate it in later. I would just rate it in at the beginning and not push. And so Michael, for a class, would be like, Bernice, you have made a sandwich, a peanut butter sandwich, but you are missing the jam. Where is the jam?
Gosh dang it, the peanut butter jelly sandwich lecture. I get that all the time.
And then one time I finally I redid a character costumes, and he was like, there's the jam. And I was like, I've done it. I've made a successful sandwich. But that's also pushed me forward for how I actually start my drawings too. Because sometimes I don't even start my drawings the same way. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, let's try something new. Let's just don't draw, just start smacking shapes together and see if I can get something fun, a fun silhouette out of that. And then I draw around it afterwards. But it's like, definitely do keep I say like a process that you like, but at the same time break the process sometimes, just go for it, try something new. If you see something you like, just be like, oh yeah, let's try that technique, see if it does anything for me.
We're very food centric here at the Drawaholics.
And actually, since it was brought up, who would like to give our lovely viewers the peanut butter and jelly lecture?
I feel like Tish can do it.
Me?
Yeah, you brought it up.
Well, technically Bernice brought it up, but then
Oh, that's true. But Bernice just spoke, so Tish, I'm voting Tish.
All right.
Saved.
Basically, it's like you have this piece of bread and then you put peanut butter on it, but it's like so thin. Like basically you need more on there, like Bernice was saying, like you can't, Bernice and I are like the same, and this is why I keep getting the peanut butter and jelly lecture, is like you hold back in the beginning, and because you're too afraid or indecisive or whatever, so your peanut butter is like super thin on the bread, and that does not turn into a good PB&J if you know how to make one correctly. But so like you got to just like go for it, and like put stuff down, and don't like hold back. It's better to like go way too far and then rein it back than to be like dip your toe in the water, and it's harder to be like, no, we need more than this. So basically, you need more. You need more. That's it, more. Like, Michael's always like, more.
It's essentially saying it takes a bit of boldness. Put out your biggest, coolest idea, the thing that you absolutely would love to have with all the rockets and spikes and fire on it that you want. And then if they tell you no, then that's okay. But if they're as excited about it as you are, that's gold.
Yeah, it's much easier to pull back on design that's gone too far than to push forward. So that's where that challenge comes in, and I struggle with the same thing, especially at the beginning. I would maybe push something 70% of the way, or maybe 60% of the way, and then there are some people who are on the opposite scale. One of our fellow Drawaholics, his name is Pavel. He'll tend to do things at like 130%, and most
all
people
the time
scale back. And so, but it's much easier for him to make that adjustment than for people who are still trying to figure out how to push it. So that's where that whole thing comes in. So,
I used to love seeing Michael's reaction. Every time Pavel would bring up a concept that he came up with, you just see Michael go, ugh.
He would like
What is
become
that?
visibly like
the best part, Pavel would always have like a 3-paragraph explanation of what he did. And he was so
And
excited.
it would make
Yeah.
sense.
It was the best.
It would
He's like,
Without a doubt.
this is what I'm imagining, blah, blah, blah.
It
I'm
would
like,
horrify
wow,
you, but it would
this
make
through.
sense.
Yeah, it's the best.
I always tell myself, channel your inner Pavel.
Go for the eldritch horror.
Go for
Hold
it.
nothing back.
Yeah. Do it.
All right. Well, so the final topic on the roster, unless anyone in the chat has any additional questions, we are going to talk about being marketable and how we are all individually building our portfolios, or what we have done to get hired at DreamWorks. Jordan. This was actually brought up by one of our fine arts members. And I was hoping to get a guest speaker in here. I was hoping to get a fine arts instructor in here, but all of our instructors are doing extra this semester, so I could not tear them away from their important work. But I can relatively answer it for you. So I'll start with one of the biggest things that I heard about the difference between fine art and illustration, because I'm an illustrator, is fine art is essentially making something you hope someone likes and you hope that someone will want to hang on their wall and stuff like that, where illustration is filling a need, where you have a client that says, I need to get this out visually. Can you help me? It really doesn't matter what kind of medium you're doing between fine art and illustration, but that's really the biggest difference. So in terms of fine art, there's lots of different ways you can make yourself marketable. The biggest thing, especially nowadays, is have an online presence. Build your website, have your portfolio there, social media, the whole 9 yards. You can also be local and locally promote yourself. A lot of mom and pop, hole in the wall cafes will absolutely love local artists to bring in art to work and run in there. In terms of the industry, have a variety of things that you enjoy doing on your portfolio. One of the biggest markets for it is fantasy. There's tons of fantasy fine art, just look at Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering and everything like that. But there's also fine art that you see not only for movies, but also in movies. Like they, even Castlevania had that beautiful, beautiful painting of Dracula and his wife. Like I absolutely love that. But a lot of the paintings and stuff you see is custom made to the movie. So there is tons of different ways that you can get out there being a fine artist. The biggest thing is just go for it. Put yourself out there and really be on the lookout for all of the different aspects that you can do. And the same goes for illustration as well. But I will leave. I will shut up because I will go on a ramble. So who wants to start off working a portfolio and being marketable as a concept artist?
I just have like a
Jordan?
couple of quick things to say that were just like good advice pieces, which is that try to think about what specifically you want to do and cater your portfolio to that. Because let's say that you want to be hired in games and you do a bunch of furry art. Like maybe it's the best furry art there ever was, but that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for, like assets, maybe props, character design. So you need to see what that company does that you want to get hired for and make sure that you can work within that IP. And so you need to cater your portfolio almost every time, depending on what you're trying to get hired for. The other thing is that if you are at the academy, there are classes like Game 778, which is all about preparing your portfolio for the real world.
And that is the same for undergrad degrees as well. And for each facet. So like me, my final, I call them cap classes because we take them at the end of our degree and they round out the degree and help us transition into the working professional world. And for me, it's illustration 491. And every degree, whether you're grad or undergrad, has that final cap class that you will take. Also, there's tons of different classes that you're doing portfolio work for. Like specifically, it's like a portfolio class just to do portfolio work in. But yeah. So you guys keep going. Sorry. Yeah. So GAM concept art. How do you make yourself marketable, and what do you put in your portfolio?
Yeah, so I've got two things, one for being marketable and one for your portfolio. The first being marketable, the way that you act in your classes right now can actually affect how easily you get started in the business, not just in building good habits, but in the people that you run into. I know that I had the lead position for the game collab for the past couple of semesters, and they know me there for being well managed, for being fast, and for making good quality stuff with solid art direction. Someone who was on the 3D modeling team actually got a job as a 3D modeler with this other company, and they were needing a new artist who could help them define their art direction. So they actually called me in to come help out their art department. And that just created that networking because I behaved like a professional while I was in these classes. So constantly try to think, am I behaving in a professional manner during these classes so that these people that could help you get employment elsewhere will see that you're someone that they can hire and they can trust, they can stick their neck out for on a recommendation. The second thing is, without those recommendations, focus on getting work in for the job that you're applying to. If you know you're going to an entry level concept artist position, then you need to have a portfolio that shows that you can do entry level concept artist work. That's things like the prop designs, set dressing, basic costuming. You're not supposed to do like these big flashy things like they like to put on the top of ArtStation pages, because that's not the role you're applying for. That's one of the lead roles, like 7-10+ years. So focus your portfolio on the things that you're actually going to be doing at the job.
I would say, outside of the obvious, have a good portfolio, be a good person type of stuff. I think being aware of who you know is huge. Wiley kind of touched on it a second ago about how you display yourself in a classroom setting, how that can affect your career. But that also goes just in life in general. Like if let's say you met someone at a convention, 3 years ago, and they end up having this, and you guys get along, and they have a slot open, they might be willing to give you a shot. Things just happen sometimes, and I know this isn't really helpful, but sometimes luck is a big part of it. Sometimes you just happen to be the right fit at the right time for the right job, and for whatever reason, things just line up. So I would be aware of who you know. If someone even if they're not an artist, they could be a producer. They could work at the parent company of whatever studio you're applying for or whatever. Use those connections, seriously. And then also just staying humble, I think is key. I think a lot of people, especially when, let's say, you get to be a senior or your last semester or two, and your work's looking pretty good, and you're cool in your bubble of Academy of Art students or wherever you're at. But when you're a professional, no one really cares about how cool you were compared to your classmates or how good you were. They just want to know, can you do the work that is assigned to you, and can you get it done under budget, and can you do it well?
Have the audacity to apply for the position, but be humble enough to work the position.
Yeah.
I'd say also take advantage of social media, even though like I still struggle with it, but I've gotten and like put your work out there. Like there's the spring show at the Academy of Art, which is very useful for just going to go talk to professionals and also even like potentially getting work, because I know a friend who got work from that and I also got work from it. I like walked into a portfolio review and it turned out to be an interview. I didn't know it was happening. But then also like GDC on their Twitter does some promotional tweets, and I got 2 freelance things from that. So yeah, just start posting your work.
Also, if you are applying to different jobs and you don't get that job, there are a lot of good artists out there, and that doesn't reflect on who's necessarily like better or worse. It's who is better fit for that role. So don't get discouraged, keep applying. And it could take, some time. So, just keep in mind that it's not necessarily just a reflection on how good you are.
And I do have a third-party experience, since said individual could not be here today. In that regard, a big part of going into the industry is also just getting your foot in the door, especially if you haven't really, been able to make a lot of connections through the school degree, and your first job may not be the one that you want. And that's okay if you're at least in the company or in the realm that you want to work in long term. Getting a position that is similar but not quite the one you want is the way to go, and work it like it is the exact same one that you want. Work it just as passionately, because like this third-party experience is a poster child for this. They went and worked at a company on a project for about a year or so, and they did well on the project. They performed well, they worked well with the team, everyone really enjoyed having them around. But then the project ended and it was just a contract work. Well, later he was asked to come back from that company on another project in the position he actually wanted, because they loved working with him so much. So regardless of what you start out as, realize it will build into something much bigger. Something, like for me, I want to be an artist writer. I want to work in the high level of the creative decisions on big teams. I know I'm not going to get there right out the door. I know I have to work my way up. And if that's just starting at like a low level concept art position, then that's just starting at a low level concept art position. But I'm going to work it as passionately as if I was up in the decision makers.
I actually want to say something real quick. You just reminded me of a story I heard about a man named Jeff Marsh, also goes by the name Swampy. He is the co-creator of Phineas and Ferb. And when he first started in the industry, he was like, I think he was doing construction in like London or something like that. And then he ended up finding his way into Hollywood as some sort of assistant on The Simpsons, and like just getting coffee for people and, sharpening pencils and running errands and doing that sort of stuff. And he would learn from the storyboard artists on the team. He wasn't hired as an artist, but he just poke his head and be like, hey, can you teach me this stuff? He ended up getting a job on The Simpsons. And then, the years go by, he starts pitching Phineas and Ferb in 1993. And it's rejected for like 16 years. And in 2007, 2008, he pitches the show and it's successful. And it's still the longest running Disney animated show on TV. And so I say that to say, like, you just don't know. Sometimes it's about timing. Sometimes it's about, who you're in a circle with, but that perseverance and being willing to just start by getting your foot in the door, like Rochelle and Ryan were saying, is so important. You never know what's going to happen a few years down the line.
And if you're salty about it because you didn't get the position you wanted, guess what? That's going to come back and bite you in the butt because you could have had it, but you won't
Be
because you
good
got
flavor
labeled a
for the
jerk.
soup.
Back to the soup.
Everyone needs a potato buddy.
That's true.
All right. Well, do any of you guys have any topics that you would like to bring up for this semester? For new members, we especially have tons of new members, like all around the world. And
I just want to say, your journey is your own, and try really hard to not compare yourself to others, but to learn from others, because comparison kills. It really does. So just stay on track to making friends, learning the things that you need to learn in class, focusing on drawing and getting your work done. Be respectful of others, to your teachers. Your teachers and your friends in class will become your connections. All of you are graduating together, so you're all entering the working world together. It's not a competition. You should look at it as, these are now my connections in the industry. But going back to, this is your personal journey, and it'll happen how it happens for you. So just hang in there and keep drawing.
The piggyback off of that, be nice. Like, it doesn't matter what you believe in or anything else. Just be respectful of everybody else. They might be, somebody you work with. They might be your boss. They might be the reason that you don't get in the industry. Just don't be a jerk, man.
Very important. Even if your art is great and you're a horrible person to work with, you will not get hired.
Don't be a jerk if you want work.
I love it. Yes, and we've seen, there's plenty of examples out there of high level industry artists that no one wants to hire because they are so hard to work for. And even, like going into the movie industry, let's bring up the Shining director. That's it. Yeah. Don't be a jerk. Just don't be a douche. Don't do it.
I'm going to say a quote from one of my favorite artists, LaShawn Thomas. And he said, you have to be willing to do what others won't to achieve what others don't. And so sometimes you got to sacrifice, talking on the phone with your friends. Sometimes you got to sacrifice playing a game or going out to eat or whatever the case is to achieve your goals. And nothing worth having comes easy. So keep that in mind. But it's also, like, I think all of us are here on this panel simply because we love what we do and we want to help other people get to this place where they enjoy what they do in the art field.
Anything worth doing is worth overdoing.
There's that. And one more thing, don't forget to have fun. Like, you're drawing because you like it. Don't pigeonhole yourself into something like, oh, I have to learn this because if I don't, my career's over. No, just have fun with it. If something excites you, go for it.
That brings up an interesting point that we didn't cover in this. One thing that I kept running into with people, especially early on here at the Academy, was that everyone kept walking up to me saying, I've kind of lost liking my art. I've kind of lost liking doing art. And I would ask them, well, what have you been drawing? And then be like, well, I've been doing my studies. I've been doing my 2500. I've been going to this class. And I stop and think, is any of that what you wanted to draw in the first place? Have you given yourself time to draw something that you do like to draw? And be like, no, I'm focusing on getting better. Well, that's why you're not in love with your art right now, is you're not doing the art that you wanted to in the first place. You're getting better, but you're not remembering to actually take the time to enjoy what you can do.
Give yourself free art time.
Yeah. So
Important.
the advice that I would give them is just, all right, take like 1 or 2 drawings a week at least, and say, I'm not going to show this drawing to anyone, and I'm going to draw whatever I want. That means that no one's going to judge it for how good it is. No one's going to tell you you should do this instead. You're just drawing it for you. And it'll help you keep in touch with what you love about art.
Something else that's important with that is you also will start making friends. Like Drawaholics is a community of artists, and it's also a community of, you know, a lot of people that I consider my friend. And it's easier to enjoy art when you have that community and you're able to just have fun doing it. But then on top of that too, I think earlier I said, well, you're not going to get hired if you're just doing furry art. I'd separate those accounts entirely. Do your anime, do your furry art, do whatever you love, do it well, make a business out of that too if you want. But then for your portfolio, that's when you can get, you know, serious about like, I want to work in the game industry, you know, I want to do this. And that's when you can do those like hardcore studies and the things that maybe you're not quite as passionate about, but trying to find ways to be passionate about too. And I think that's really important to consider, that it doesn't always have to be study and grinding and doing somebody else's work.
And to kind of piggyback off of all you guys with my own experiences, I hacked my own brain essentially. You know, we talked about motivation. You do not need motivation to show up for work. Well, that's, you know, come to find out, motivation is actually the product of accomplishment. When you have a goal set and you meet that goal, you feel accomplished, you feel more motivated to hit the next goal. And for a lot of us, you know, that were just starting out, of course we didn't feel motivated at first. We had our passion there and the passion fire was lit, but when you're working and you're grinding and you're studying, you know, that tends to dwindle out. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up hacking my brain that just working hard and meeting those goals and getting the projects done and getting the to-do list, that was my motivation. Checking it off the to-do list. You know, didn't matter what it was, didn't matter what it was for. If I was able to check it off my to-do list, like I seriously rewarded myself. And typically my rewards are game time, because on a normal day, you know, I have my family time. I have, you know, other work and projects that I need to do, as well as school and, you know, of course, Drawaholics, just because I love you all. But you know, like Netflix and chill, I might have like once a week, if even. You know, game nights, I maybe have once a month, you know, unless I do major projects and get those major projects done, and then I'll binge like Witcher for 3 days. I use that as my motivation. But anytime that I am, you know, like I feel like I'm kind of, you know, running out of fuel a little bit, you know, I do give myself some R&R time. But I always end up going in a circle and going back to work, because I'll be like, do I want to play a game right now or do I want to make games? And then like that, I'm back to work.
But also don't be afraid like to go play a game. Like
Oh yeah.
if
Oh
you
yeah,
just
no.
take, because honestly, like if you are in games, like it is important that you play games to see what's out there and to see the different art styles or the mechanics or the levels and everything. So don't feel like guilty if you're taking time out of your day to play a game, because that's or watch a movie, because those are all very important to relax and to also like I think Jordan was saying before, like taking a TV show and sort of like analyzing it a little. You can still, if you can have fun and kind of like watch it a little bit, like kind of like scrutinize it like a little bit as you're doing it. It's still very important. So
We must do research.
You're enriching yourself with awesome. And that's a big thing too, like feeling like anxiety or guilt whenever you're going out to take a break. It's something that's pretty tough to get past. But when you think about it, that you're enriching yourself with awesome, you can let yourself not feel as much anxiety and guilt by telling yourself, I'm going to come back with this to make things better. I'm going to make better stuff when I get back instead of just being stuck there and making kind of okay. Meh.
I also kind of want to expand on that a little bit too, with the idea that, again, everybody's mode of relaxation is different. The way that works for me is kind of separating what I think is fun versus what I think is work. And that's even very true within art. Like, will this get me hired? No, but is it fun? Then I'll relax and do that. But I also know some people who, my friend Ren, for example, she was like, man, I'm heavily inspired by, Japanese culture, and I'm really inspired by anime, but I keep getting told that I'm not going to get hired by doing that. And she's like, but you know what? I love doing it. And she became so good, and she got hired, and she's doing great. So it's like, sometimes you can combine these things too. And I just wanted to touch on that because, again, for some people, it's about separation. Other people, it's about combining it and just making that the best.
And people will give you all sorts of advice, but you don't have to take all of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps us up. Uh, kid. So I guess, yeah, we covered everything. So thank you everyone for joining us. We are super excited to have everyone who is new to the school, to the Drawaholics, everyone that is new. You guys make our world go round. You really do. And we look forward to continuing to get to know everyone in the Discord server and watching everyone grow. Do your 2,500. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you online. Bye.
Toodles.
Bye.
All right.